Good. Hi, my name is Nolan. I'd like to invite all of you to our annual in-person OBPAC meeting. We're so excited. Just some of the things we're going to go over, some of the big ticket items. We're going to get an update on some grantee engagement from the Oregon Community Path. And then we're going to hear from the ODOT Government Relations and be given an update on the ongoing transportation vision work group. So that's exciting. And then we're going to talk about all the infrastructure we saw on the bike ride yesterday / pedestrian ride. And then we also are going to elect co-chairs for the coming year, which is super fun. Yeah, I'll give it off to Roberto to go over some announcements and meeting etiquette.
Thank you, Nolan. So first of all, I just want to welcome everyone to the T building. If this is your first time here, T building, this is the headquarters ODOT transportation building, T building. So in the event that you all need to use the restrooms, and this is the first time here, you'll just go out the door to your right, and either to the right and the left, you'll see bathrooms. In the event of an emergency, there are certain doors that are only accessible to ODOT employees. So do follow the exit signs and do not use the elevator. There is a staircase right here to the right. Unfortunately, that one needs a badge, so make sure that you're also around an ODOT employee to access that. But I just wanted to welcome everyone to Salem. The folks who are joining us virtually, just a reminder to keep your cameras off and your microphones muted. Carrie, welcome and thank you for joining us virtually. It's nice to see you. OBPAC members can have their cameras on. And yeah, other than that, just keep the meeting respectful. We will have time for public comment. So folks who are joining us virtually, you're able to raise your hand or put a note in the chat room letting us know that you want to participate in public comment. We do have one person sign up for public comment. So once we get to that part of the agenda, we'll let Sheila provide comment. All right.
Thanks, Roberto. And actually, we gonna do introductions? We can do it. Yeah, so let's, I think we need to do introductions. Why don't we start with you?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Davidson. I'm the Bicycle and Pedestrian Program Manager here at ODOT, and I'm one of the folks who works with OBPAC.
And I'm Dave Thompson. I'm one of our current OBPAC co-chairs.
My name is Nolan Poole. I'm the other OBPAC co-chair. And I'm also the under 21 position.
I'm Andrea Durbin. I'm the interim manager for the public transportation, we're now called office, public transportation office.
I found that out last night.
Yeah.
Jenna Berman, active transportation liaison for Region 2, which is the Willamette Valley.
Bridget Bottinelli, interim Oregon Community Pass program manager.
I'm Kathy Rigby. I'm the member at large.
Del Scharfenberg, I'm a OBPAC member. I'm from Milwaukee, Oregon. I'm also on the back in this county bike pit committee.
Good morning, everyone. Andre Legacy Walker, you see him pronouns. I am an OBPAC at large member.
I am Beth Young, she, her pronouns, and I am the local government and planning position on OBPAC.
Brad Davis, he, him, and newest OBPAC member and Portland Bike Shop owner.
I'm Amanda Howell, she, her pronouns. I'm the interim senior active transportation policy analyst in the public transportation office at ODOT.
Wow.
And Roberta Cotto, I am the active transportation program analyst, and in my role, I support both the OBPAC and the SRAC and ped and bicycle safe routes to school programs. I will pass it over to Carrie, who's joining us virtually. Carrie, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Carrie Roberson, and I'm the Built Environment Representative. Good morning.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carrie. For any other folks who are joining us virtually or ODOT members, please put or introduce yourself via the chat room, where we'll pass it on to the co-chairs.
Thank you, Roberto. So next up on our agenda is public comments. So we have not received any written public comment for this meeting. I'll turn it back to Roberto for our online comment.
Fantastic. If there's any folks who want to provide public comment, please raise your hand or add a note on the chat room. We did not receive any written testimony before the meeting. And I do not see anyone raising their hands. So Sheila, did you want to say something?
I've never done it on this side. My name is Sheila Lyons and I managed I was Ian in another age, I guess. And I retired in 2018. And I started in 25 with the Bike and Ped program at ODOT. It was me and Michael Ronkin, who was the program manager, and he retired about a year and a half later, and I took over and was the staff person till 2018. And I really haven't done anything ODOT related since. I've just been out there living my life, using the streets. And I thought I would like to say something. I think it's appropriate maybe to say something about the bicycle bill and kind of pass on my knowledge of it. Because long may it continue. And I think it's accomplished amazing things. I really sincerely have seen a change just out there on the streets. What is being built now is stuff that I was told was impossible. Just, 10 years ago. Even. So it's really transformational what's happening. And I see it, the users are off the chart, I'm starting to wonder what I advocate for. Facilities are crowded, I see people on it, and now the gas prices are off the charts. We're even cuter than we used to, right? We've accomplished a lot in 55 years. It started with the vision of Don Stamps. And he just wanted his kids to be able to walk to school in Jackson, Oregon. On the highway, they had to walk on the highway because where was the schools on? And I don't know when bicycling and pedestrian facilities, I think largely got ignored. I don't know when that started. I think with the influx of the highways, the interstate system. So there's a legacy of neglect on these systems. But we are fundamental to transportation. We populated this planet by walking across it. And that hasn't changed. People can and will walk in much greater numbers than they can and will drive, will be able to go. And we're always cheaper and we're always safe. And that will never change. And it doesn't matter if we capture 75% of the funds. We probably only need to capture about 20 to 30% to have a real meaningful. The Hawthorne Bridge was in Portland. The addition of bike ped facilities on that bridge resulted in a 20% increase in traffic, and it cost $1 million. It seems like there's no money, but you still have a bike. And you are even cuter now. Cooperate with all those maintenance units out there who want to do that one thing, that silly little one thing that solves some problems. So, because we succeed at small, like nobody else does. So keep it up, because I see it on the street in my town. The quality of the facilities is what I dreamed it could be. And I didn't think I'd live to see that. And I'm so excited and so happy. I know it's a struggle now. It's always a struggle. It's never not a struggle. But it's really cool that we've accomplished. And it doesn't exist everywhere. We have a magic here of seeing that the car isn't the solution first and everything else last. we are the first solution. And append the bigger things to us. And that's true mobility. It's a little speech. You know, that was part of my job to get out there and buck up the forces. So. Thank you for the good work you're doing, because I think it's really. This,
I know this isn't a conversation, but I just, you said you were OPPAC?
no, I was staff.
Oh, you were.
I was,
okay.
staff. So let me tell the story of the bike bill. Don Stathos was a Republican state representative from Jacksonville, Florida. And he wanted his kids to walk to school. And so he, you know, he was a state rep, he put together a bill. And if you, there are, I think if you, I'm sure the story's out there, you can, that it was a tale of daring do with the legislature, they literally locked some guy in. So he was forced to vote, and he was he couldn't vote no, he knew he couldn't vote no, but he didn't want to vote yes. Well, so they locked him in and forced him to vote, and he was the deciding factor in passing this bill. 1% of the state gas tax revenues, I mean, it's just how little money could they give us? Really, but it's answer. And so it started the bike and ped, the legislature is what legislatively mandated this committee position that Ian's in, and 1% of funds with state bike ped. And it created design manuals were created out of that, engineering standards and practices got started out of that. A drip of money got started out of that. There was and when it was passed by advocates in this state, it was advocates who showed up, 800 people, I think, came to the state, got themselves to the state capitol on the day it was passed. And then I want to talk about a little bit, I don't know a lot about the huge number of, there's about, I don't know how many staff people have carried the helm, but Michael Ronkin wrote the design. He joined the department. I don't know when he joined the department. He left the department in about 2007. And I think the design manual had to have been about 15 years old by then. And he wrote the manual, right? He had the complete vision of what a system looked like. And he articulated it very clearly. And we revised that manual and we kept it going. We fed and watered. And it never got adopted into the highway design manual until I was, I mean, no. And so, but everybody used it because it worked. And I want to give him credit because he wrote that book.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for sharing testimony today. Sheila will be joining us at the Bike Bill celebration, so please engage with her and she'll give you more background about all the amazing work and the work that's been done to pass this Bike Bill. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those great words, Sheila. Now on a more boring note, the meeting minutes from last meeting. Yeah, that's our there is one correction in the third box on the second page at the top. Ian Davidson will be presenting a biannual report, not an annual report. Can I start the movement?
Sure.
Also on the first page, near the bottom, my name is misspelled. Both my first and last names are misspelled.
We didn't want to misspell just your first name. We wanted
All of it.
Yeah, you were not Dale. No, okay, we'll fix that. Thank you.
So with those two corrections, I would like to make a motion to pass the meeting minutes.
Second.
And can I see thumbs?
And Carrie, you're able to put in the chat room or turn on your camera, nay or yay?
Sorry, I thought my camera was on. Yay.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
So I think that's unanimous. Wonderful work, team. And now. Dave, would you like to introduce our Oregon Community Path presentation?
Yeah, so next on the agenda, got Bridget Botnelli, who's gonna give us, kind of an update on what's going on in the Oregon Community Paths, given all the people. Thanks. Anyway, go.
Is this an alright place to say?
Mhm.
Okay. Just trying to make sure I'm like,
Yeah.
this crazy thing in the
Yeah,
middle
we'll probably do
here.
it. So pretty-
Okay. Do I have to film 9:50 or do I have 30 minutes to let's
You have 30 minutes.
okay, 10 minutes. Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks everyone. My name is Bridget Botnelli. I'm the interim Oregon Community Paths Program Manager. I've been in this role since the beginning of March. And I'm here today to provide y'all with some updates on the program. Here on the side. Oh, in front of you, there are a copy of the slides, and there's also a copy of the scoring criteria that was used in the last round. That'll come up in the presentation, so just so you know what's in front of you. So the goal of my presentation today is to provide an overview of the program, so a little bit of background of how the program is functioned. And I'll also be informing you all about an evaluation process that's been going on and share some points of feedback that I've heard so far about the program. And then I'll turn it over for us to have a discussion. So I'll spend about 15 minutes talking and then 15 minutes for a discussion. Next. Okay. So the goal of the Oregon Community Paths program, sure I don't run this cord here, is to help communities create and maintain active transportation networks through the investment in multi-use paths across the state. And for these multi-use paths, we're specifically talking about paved paths. This is not single-use, mountain biking trails or hiking trails. This is paved paths to get people to and from their locations. That's the general vision, kind of what we're striving for with the program. Next slide. So a little bit about the program funding. The program receives federal and state dollars. The federal dollars are they're called transportation alternative dollars, and the program receives the Oregon Transportation Commission is the one who approves that ODOT can use those dollars for OCP. The program also receives state funds. The state funds are held in the Multimodal Active Transportation Fund, also known as the MAT. And within the MAT, it comprises of the bicycle excise tax and the 7% of the vehicle privilege tax, which comes from the Connect Oregon Fund. So together with the state and federal funds, that makes OCP. And then from there, the program provides project refinement grants. So those are like planning, study grants, as well as construction grants. And then moving into a little bit about the types of projects that are eligible, what we're looking to fund. The state funds that the program receives are governed by Oregon administrative rules. So there's very specific details about who is eligible, what types of projects are eligible, and things of that nature. So in terms of projects, we're really looking to, again, improve that multimodal transportation system, increase safety and access for everyone. We're also looking at projects to improve a critical link, a regional path, or a safe crossing. And then these paths must be open to the public for use. I want to highlight here the pieces around critical link and regional path. Both of those are defined, which I'm going to do on the next two slides, but I want to highlight that because that'll come back around into the feedback when we're thinking about what sort of projects the program is funding. So regional path, there's a lot of text on the slide here, but this is the content that's on the slide here is pulled from the Oregon administrative rule defining what a regional path is. So basically, it's a continuous path made up of one or more connected segments that's primarily physically separated from the roadway. And It either connects 2 or more communities, with each one no more than 15 miles apart. It traverses a single large community with a path that's 10 miles or longer, so this is kind of, it's a 2-for-1 there. And will serve as connection point for people commuting between communities, or is officially designated as a walking and biking route, and is endorsed by elected bodies along the path alignment. So all of those things come together to comprise what we're defining a regional path. So it's basically focusing more on those medium to long distance routes to help us either get across town or connect or bike to a town that's very nearby. Go ahead. The other type of projects that we're funding is these ones that we're defining as critical links. And again, this is defined in Oregon administrative rule. And administrative links either improve walking or biking access to high need locations. So whether that's getting to jobs, school, medical resources, or it improves biking and walking in a place where connections don't exist, or there's significant safety concerns. So these kind of pieces all come together into what sort of projects the program is funding. So now I'm gonna just provide a little background of like what we have funded so far, a little bit about the solicitation history. So there have been 3 rounds of competitive grant funding so far. In the first round, the program offered federal and state funds, as well as in the second round. And in the third round, it was just federal funds. And I have a little bit of information here about specifically how much was in each round, as well as the number of projects awarded. And on the right-hand side of the screen, this chart here is demonstrating how much funds were awarded, which is the blue, compared to the orange, which is the applicant demand. And the numbers pulled there from the applicant demand is from folks who submitted a full application. So that number there doesn't reflect people who just submitted an LOI and then didn't like follow back up with the program. It's just people who submitted that full application. So we're seeing there the amount of funding that we distribute is much lower than the demand, and that doesn't even capture people who submitted the LOIs. And if there's anything else I want to say on this slide. Yeah, I think that's good. Put in the next slide. All right, and this slide here, this is just a visual graphic of the state showing the state projects that have been funded. I want to emphasize that this is just the state projects. So if you don't see a project here on the map, that's probably because it was funded with federal funds. And that we don't quite have that graphic ready yet, but I wanted to share part of what we have. So these projects, again, are all funded with state funds. The larger the yellow circle, the greater amount of funds that project was awarded. So on this map, 9 of these projects have been completed, and the rest are slated to be completed in the next few years. So we're making some great progress there, which is exciting to see. So let's celebrate some wins there. You know? Awesome. All right. Okay, so that's a little bit of background about the program, which kind of brings us to where we are today. So to address ODOT's funding gap for the 25-27 budget cycle, the Oregon legislature redirected $8 million from the Oregon Community Paths program. So this came from our state funds. As I mentioned before, the state funds are housed in this multimodal active transportation fund. And within that, we have the bike tax and we have the vehicle privilege tax. So the bike tax was not touched. The bike tax will still be used for bicycle infrastructure. It did not go to highway maintenance or anything. But the vehicle privilege tax was the one that was subject to the $8 million redirection. So I also want to emphasize with that too, that any projects that are underway or have been selected for funding, those are still continuing. They're still moving on. It's just looking forward when that $8 million is going towards other parts of the agency. Yeah, go ahead. So now that $8 million have been redirected, which is very unfortunate, It also brings us to a point of thinking about, well, what's next? What do we do now with this reduction in funding? And as I mentioned before, the program has since done 3 rounds of funding, which is equated to about roughly 6 years of existence under this program branding of Oregon Community Paths. So we actually have a decent amount of data and experiences to take a pause and say, okay, what have we done so far? How's it been going? We're kind of in this lull right now because some funds have been redirected. So how do we capitalize on this opportunity and think about where are we going? So now I'm going to transition into speaking a little bit more about the evaluation effort that we've been working on and some feedback received so far. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I looked at the clock. Yeah, so transition into talking about the evaluation effort so far. I'd like to preface this with saying that the content that I'm going to share about feedback and whatnot, this is all reflective of a snapshot in time. It's not static information. It's going to continue to evolve, and this is just phase 1 or whatever you'd like to point at. This is not we're only talking about feedback today and that's it. I'd also too like to acknowledge as well, anyone who has been sharing feedback about this program over the years and has been engaged in this field. Just want to thank you for continuing to share feedback and really appreciate that you're engaging in the program in that way. So a little bit about what we've done so far. So we've had some informal interviews, and those were just conducted with external and internal partners. Those started happening in the fall and are continuing to happen. Those are just casual conversations of how's OCP been for you? What do you think about the program? Do you have any ideas? And then we also sent out a survey, and this was sent via direct email to folks who have either applied for the program, submitted an LOI, awarded a grant. And that survey was sent for 3 weeks. It was also sent out to a select few ODOT staff who work really closely on some of those OCP projects. And the survey was structured in a way that part one of the survey was tell us a little bit about your experience with the program pre-award. So how was the application? How did you feel about the scoring? Those sorts of things. And then part 2 of the survey was focused on the post-award process. So how was it executing your grant agreement or submitting reimbursement request, or with the federal funds, how did that go? So that's how the survey kind of was developed and rolled out. I think I can go to the next slide. Okay. So from the informal interviews and the surveys, some key kind of buckets of feedback themes emerged. And those 4 buckets are program structure and solicitation cadence, scoring criteria, state versus federal project delivery, and staffing. And so I'm going to take a minute now to go through each of those buckets and just share some really high-level highlights of what we've heard in each of those buckets, and then that's where I'll transition into discussion. Okay, so for program structure and solicitation cadence, what we heard appreciation that ODOT values and funds this program. So I just want to start with that on a positive note of this is great that we still have this program, and want to just, celebrate that. And then in terms of some larger vision things about the program, I heard a desire for the program to reassess its priorities for funding regional paths. So as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're funding either critical links or regional paths or safe connections, but there's an interest to really maybe hone in on that regional path piece of the connecting, creating these larger routes to connect communities. So taking a deeper dive in to see, what have we funded, just looking to see what we have funded and how that plays into this regional path definition. And then, as I mentioned before, the program receives federal and state funds. And at ODOT, we kind of refer to this as color of money, and each of those fund sources can be used or have different rules and restrictions. So the state funds are in statute and an administrative rule, whereas the federal funds, we're looking at federal rules and federal rules and guidelines. So although everything's under this OCP umbrella, there's some nuances there in the rules, which then impact how we distribute out those funds to community members or to communities and local agencies. So thinking more about, well, how can we, both of those funds are valuable, but each have different rules. So how can we ensure that we're maximizing those dollars to the greatest extent to fund, to have the biggest impact? So for example, federal funds, they're very valuable, but they're also very complicated. So are we funding, are those funds for certain, do we target those funds for certain agencies? Do we target those funds for certain projects like bridges, which are complicated? Just thinking about those sort of things. So similarly, like whatever we come up with, the program guidance also needs to reflect that those things, that the experience with both of those funds are different. So that way folks know what they're getting into in case they get one fund and then they get another fund. And then the last point I'll make about program structure, the project refinement grant category is specific to the federal funds. And we received some comments about like additional clarity about some milestones and what the deliverables there for that grant category could be helpful to help strengthen that. So looking more about, okay, again, is project refinement, should that be only federal funds? Should state funds be involved? Just thinking about that. Okay, yeah, next slide. Okay, for scoring criteria, and this is why I provided a copy of the scoring criteria, have that printed out in case you want to reference it. Generally, what we heard was that folks thought the scoring process was transparent. However, there were some additional comments that an analysis of the criteria might be helpful to understand if the awarded projects are helping the program achieve the goals, and like how the specific metrics that are used for each scoring category have impacted those projects. So for example, for equity, the metric there that the program has used is the social equity index. So it's been a whatever census tract is closest to your project, you get points for that. So there's some comments around equity is super important. Is the social equity index still the right metric that we want to use to ensure that we're really meeting that goal and funding strong projects as well? So again, I'm not saying we're changing the scoring criteria. I'm just putting it out there for people to think about how the scoring criteria has been landing so far. Kind of, and similar to that, whether it's in the scoring criteria or the program structure, there was some feedback around, how can we actually create a better pipeline for folks to receive construction funding? So, for example, as I mentioned, the project refinement grant that's just currently funded with federal funds. If someone does receive that project refinement grant from OCP, is there anything in the criteria or the program structure that makes them competitive to come back to the program and receive construction funding? That way they can kind of take their whole project from start to finish and know that OCP can support them along the way and have that sort of additional benefit or additional incentive, I guess, with the additional possible scoring points or whatnot. And then just a logistical point, there was some feedback to just ensuring that the application questions tied back to the scoring criteria. So being super clear about this question is not scored, and this question is scored, and this is what criteria it's related to. Go ahead. Okay. All right, the third category here is about state versus federal project delivery. I think project delivery, I'm not sure if it's an ODOT specific term or not, but basically that means how you need to complete your project. So like, this is how the project needs to unfold. So this is unique for OCP in the fact that if, for example, let's say City of Bend receives state funds from OCP, we execute a grant agreement between City of Bend and ODOT, and then City of Bend goes off and does their project on their own. ODOT is very hands-off. City of Bend submits reimbursement requests, they submit quarterly progress reports, everything's great. And it's pretty straightforward, which was also reflected in the feedback. Folks thought that was straightforward. They really liked that process. For the federal funds, it's a little bit different. So if the City of Bend were awarded federal funds must be delivered by either a certified public agency or ODOT can do it on behalf of whoever was awarded those funds. So for City of Bend, they're not a certified agency, so ODOT actually delivers the project for them. So so City of Bend and ODOT execute an intergovernmental agreement, but then ODOT does all the work. City of Bend does not receive the grant funds. They don't submit reimbursement requests or submit quarterly progress reports. So it's two very different experiences, which also shows two different types of feedback. With the federal funds, feedback was more complicated, can be more costly, kind of getting less bang for your buck because federal funds are complicated. So thinking more about how can we support each of those processes and still follow the rules and whatnot. All right, and then lastly, for staffing, we received positive comments regarding communications and helpfulness of ODOT staff, so that was nice to hear, and also acknowledge that there's always room for improvement to continue to increase our communication and assistance. In terms of the applicant experience, and folks noted that providing more templates and technical assistance would improve their experience, so that's something I can look further into. And then lastly, there was some comments that perhaps maybe a statewide trail planning expert within ODOT could provide more of that kind of detailed construction knowledge, or just provide more detailed construction knowledge that could help increase the technical assistance and that is available for the program. All right, we got that stuff. So with that, those are some key highlights. It's a very simplified version. Happy to talk more in depth about everything too, and know that things will continue to change. The things that's on the slide might not. Again, it's just representative point in time. The feedback is constantly evolving. So in terms of next steps for ODOT staff, continuing to explore these key feedback points, do more research to see like what's behind there, what's behind them, what's there, what can we really dig into and see if there's any ideas for solutions and whatnot. And then I think the $1 million question, perhaps, which is why I put it on the slide here, is identifying the appropriate timeline for future solicitation. So you don't know when that's going to be, but we're aware that it's in our minds here. We're working to figure out when that will be. That's kind of what we're doing with all of this and continuing to have conversations. Okay. So, let's grab it up here for a second. Okay. So with that, just kind of based on what I've presented, I'd be curious to know if y'all have any thoughts. I've posed 3 questions here to kind of jumpstart the conversation. Also happy to answer any logistic questions about the program, but just curious to know if you all think anything's missing or any other flags you'd like to share. If you think there's any, like, if anything stuck out as a really big challenge, you think, as well as what might be the biggest opportunity while we're in this refresh evaluation period. So that's the end of my spiel. So thank you so much for listening.
We've got time for a few questions.
I have a lot of thoughts. So, if you go back to that slide with the dots on where you've given funding,
Yeah.
I want to point out to all ODOT staff that there is clearly a huge gap along the coast of anything. There's nothing except for the darling of the coast, which everybody always feels is like a story, which leaves a lot of trails unattended, undeveloped, unplanned, and not provided with safety. And we clearly have. I know that there's always set asides for rural, but I think there could be some discussion about set asides for coastal, just outright. And part of that process, I am going to guess, is probably lack of capacity, perhaps in some of the communities. Lack of planning capacity as well as grant. People who are seeking those kinds of things, but there should be some concerted discussion about technical assistance up and down there to develop, because we all know that there are many gaps. And while it's wonderful that we're connecting things here where there's possibly an argument for higher population, there's also an argument that our coast doubles and triples in size. And most of the people coming out there are folks from the valley coming to do outdoor activities like cycling on our coast. And so none of those things are being attended to, planned properly, or in the discussions. Now, obviously, we're not getting any funding. And our region 2 is complex, right? You cover a large area, and there's probably more attention and more planners chomping at the bit for funding where there's more people right now. But you can clearly see we're not getting any of the attention on the coast. So I would say that is one of the issues that I would like ODOT to consider. Then on the evaluation effort, this is just perpetuating the problem, because I'm not sure who you talk to, but if they're not getting any funding and they're not in the pipeline, then you're also not getting the information in the evaluation about why that's happening. So unless there's specific reach out by ODOT, they're not included in that. And on the statewide slide, a statewide trade planning expert with may help providing construction expertise, but how about planning expertise? Because, it may be possible to do some of these projects out there. Dave mentioned when we went for the ride that it's nice to have these bike facilities, like improving them is great, but we have none. And so how do we get some that you can improve in 10 years, right? We love that opportunity. We have many highway miles along there where it's completely unsafe for anyone to be there, but we know that tourists are out there. They're braving it, and we have to do something about the fact that it's unsafe for them to be doing it. It does lend itself only to the most brave and expertise riders, but they're there. And they're usually near where families are also braving it and trying to make crosses because of views and because of an opportunity to get to a beach or other things. So I just would like to point out that there's a lot of gaps there, and the evaluations and the staffing isn't meeting the obvious gap.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. That ties into something I was thinking, which is when he was looking at the distribution between regional submissions versus the smaller connectivity ones. Certainly, it's a lot harder for a small city to put together a plan for a regional path than it is for them to put together a plan for something smaller. So we want to be careful to not somehow disadvantage the smaller cities by how we look at that.
Thank you for that.
Can I piggyback on that too, the third new corner here? I'm a planner, I was a planner for the city of Newport, and I know that we didn't apply for community paths, even though we got disconnected parts of the city. This is just a use as an example. For a lot of the rural communities, small, that have difficult topography, and basically the highway is, what links, the only thing that links all the communities. And because you can't, it just will cost so much to have an alternative route. So the reason Newport didn't apply for community pass, right off, my boss said, is because it has to be off-road. Even though we've got a part, the schools are in the north part of Newport, north of the bridge. But there's a whole big community north of the school area with kids and a really great, low to mid-income housing development. That can only be linked by 101, by 101. So in conclusion, community paths, because it has to be off-road, basically is problematic for places that are small, difficult topography, and a state highway is the only way to get from one part of town to another.
Okay.
And then, I'll just add a little bit, Newport's unique that, it's got the bridge is the only part linking the north and the south parts of Newport. And that's scary to ride. I've only done it once in the wind when I was much younger. And, I haven't done it in the last 20 years. Anyway, so like alternative transportation, bike ferries, etc. Thinking about stuff like that if you really want to link communities.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Beth. We do have Carrie with her hand up. Carrie, go ahead and unmute and share your thoughts.
I was just thinking of almost the same thing, commenting where we don't feel safe anymore riding our bikes. When I was young, I was all over Northeast Portland riding our bikes. The need for these community paths and regional paths highlights the fact that people have to be off-road to enjoy themselves, because there's really an increasing trend of drivers actually being aggressive toward bicyclists and pedestrians if they feel that they are impeding them. And so I just want to pinpoint the fact that urban, rural, highways, side streets in Northeast Portland, it is becoming more unsafe for our bicyclists and pedestrians because of lack of empathy and caution on the part of drivers, increased speed. You see many people speeding past the speed limits on residential streets, on commercial streets. It's 15 to 20 miles above the speed limits. And so the people that are on the existing paths or trying to use the existing infrastructure are stressed. And that's why you will probably, see people wanting these, increase in community paths and regional paths, because they don't feel safe on the existing infrastructure. Whereas if you're somewhere where there are, many people on mopeds, bicycles, and such, like Amsterdam or elsewhere, people are more conscious of those, of that segment of the population. It's a much stronger consciousness on the general public that there are alternate means of transportation being taken, not just your car.
Thank you, Karen.
I had a question about performance analysis, whether or not you're like doing rider counts at the end of the projects. I'd be really curious to see. They're all making connections. I think it's amazing, but I would be curious to see if there's a relationship between the amount of funding being awarded to certain projects and the actual amount of daily ridership.
Yeah.
Or walkership.
Or walkership, excuse me. Yes, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I don't, to my knowledge, I'm not sure if that's a post grant requirement. That's something that
It would be really, yeah, it would be
You know?
really, really cool. We put some counters out recently on a path in Corvallis that got constructed with an enhanced grant, I think. And the numbers were pretty incredible and pre and post data would be, I mean, pre is hard to do,
Yeah,
right?
so, yeah,
Because of the path, path not existing, but anyway, post data would be really cool. And I think what would be interesting about that would maybe be to put some sort of prompt in the application, not as a scoring criteria, because it may or may not be
Yeah,
feasible for
yeah.
them to do it, but to maybe make it eligible for the funding. To have counter, to purchase a counter.
totally.
That could be out there after, I don't know, Roger was talking about counters yesterday, so he might be a good person to talk to about the different technology, but.
Yeah.
I really like that idea.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Something that our parks and rec systems do to track usership after something's been redeveloped is to put a QR code on signage that says, give us your experience,
Right.
to kind of track if it's made a difference and how people are using the space. So I don't know if that's possible. Once there's a path to have people provide you the feedback so you can kind of gauge whether you're increasing that feedback or not, right? Right.
Yeah.
Something I'd say, I don't know if it's 100% possible because of like information laws, but I feel like if I was in a rural community, like what you were saying, I feel like there is a disparity between like the rural communities on the map. I feel like it would be really useful to see an example of like what the application should look like, even though, because I've never done it before, so I don't know if you can provide an example of a good application you've had in the past.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that capacity issue, right?
Right.
It will build capacity, but also how are you then scoring or, we just don't have. Here in the valley, you'll have access to multimodal transportation that won't exist. So for some folks, like our employees, that might be the only transportation they have is their bike. And they won't have access to a train system. They obviously don't have access to that. They won't have a bus system that's usable. So that kind of transit isn't always possible. So there are a lot of folks, including kids, a lot of kids that are just using their bike to get around and on really poor infrastructure.
Yeah.
Also, I wouldn't pick an example that's too complicated.
Not a crazy bridge going over.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Good point.
Okay, I think we probably need to wrap up here.
Yeah, sounds
Do
good.
you have anything else?
No, just thank you all and happy to talk further and have individual conversations with folks who are really interested in this program. So thank you.
Thank you, that was you.
Now we're gonna move into our legislative update hosted by Dustin Housechild and Raina Aguiar. And before we go into this, I'd like to remind all of our OBPAC members that as individuals, you have voices too, not just as a board. And in fact, we're regulated as a board, but as individuals, we can do whatever you want. So you can do a little lobbying for your own personal love of bicycles and pedestrian paths. So would you?
Yeah.
Okay, start.
Yeah, hi, my name is Raina Aguirre, I'm with the ODOT Government Relations team. I've got Justin Housechild with me, you might be familiar with him, I think he might have done updates for you all in the past. Going forward, you will see my name and my face. This is kind of Justin's official handoff to me. I am newer to the GR team here at ODOT. So thank you to Justin for being my emotional support brain today. He really was the point person still during the short session. I had just kind of come on and wasn't as plugged in as Justin was. So I appreciate Justin being here. And then we will, Roberta will pull up just a short, very short slide deck for us. So today we'll just talk about kind of the 2026 short session, run through bills, what occurred with ODOT's budget, and then kind of highlight some things that are happening in the interim leading up to the 27 session. So during the short session, there were a total of 304 measures that were introduced. As an agency, ODOT did track of 111 of those bills, but ultimately 18 bills passed that had some sort of agency impact. So here's just a kind of a list of kind of the things that we were tracking, some things that did have a transportation nexus or an ODOT impact that didn't pass over on the right side, and then a list of bills that did pass on the left side. I think probably with this group 4007, the micromobility with a milk truck little piece in there is maybe what would be of most interest for this group. And I'll let Justin kind of touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would imagine there's probably some folks in the room that are familiar with this bill. This bill is kind of a first of its kind here in Oregon, in that it's setting some definition for micromobility devices. It's setting rules around, you know, the use of helmets for ages, age limits. And like Raina mentioned, there's a milk truck piece in there, but the other big piece that this bill addresses is imposter bikes. So there's this issue with bikes out there that are either being marketed as, or, you know, maybe even, you know, aftermarket, tweaked, if you will, to go faster than what safety parameters would probably allow for. And so that was a big concern to the advocates that were working on this bill. This wasn't an ODOT bill. This was a bill that was brought forward by a coalition of folks, micromobility groups, the Street Trust, in order to make sure that there was some kind of regulatory apparatus, if you will, around these bikes. I think, you know, and I don't want to speak for the advocates, but I think because it's such a rapidly developing area of the law, that it's likely that this is going to see some attention in future sessions. So I keep your eyes on this space, because I think additional refinements can be made to this area of the law, and additions as well. But that was probably the bill that had the biggest nexus with this group's particular interest. Be happy to answer some more questions on that. I will just say that I think, you know, we're already starting to engage with advocates around refinements to that measure. So keep your eyes peeled in 27 for some additional stuff coming down the pike in that area.
So 2026 short session, the biggest conversation was addressing our budget adjustment. So Senate Bill 1601 did have a one-time redirection of funds for certain programs. We have a list here with the amounts. So again, as our understanding, this is a one-time redirection. Obviously, those budget conversations are still ongoing, especially going into 2027, with the hopes of a transportation package coming together. And in those efforts, there's also the governor's visionary work group that is happening. So like I said, as we know right now, those are all just starting to happen. The governor's work group is scheduling meetings. They have subgroups that are happening, and I can give some more detail on that if needed. And then just currently right now, the government relations team, we are working on just legislative concept development. And like I said, the 27 funding package, all those work products are happening at the moment and getting started. So we do have a handful of legislative concepts that we have submitted to the governor's office. So we're still waiting on a few of them to see whether we get the green light to move forward or not. So pretty soon we will have outreach plans in place for each of those concepts and what areas of the agency they'll affect. And we'll start doing outreach and socialization of those LCs. So we might be reaching out if anything does have a nexus to the work you guys are doing. Short and sweet for us.
Oh, my God.
Oh, you just wrapping.
Oh,
Thank you. Yeah, it's obviously I'll be watching very closely.
The work group things that are happening are all led by the governor's office. So I mean, ODOT is offering support in that aspect to get those conversations going and help bringing people to the table. But a lot of that effort is running through Kelly Brooks and her team. So if you are interested in updates, we just recommend visiting the website. You can sign up for alerts and stuff there. They have another meeting coming up in July 7th, I believe is the next meeting. And then the work groups haven't been completely made public. we do know what areas that they will relate to and who those chairs will be. But then I think later on this month, I should be able to see who the full work group members are, and they'll be notified of participation. And then the subgroups will put together a memo for the bigger work group by August, and then the final report from the work group will go to the governor in December with recommendations.
I have a question for staff, maybe. Is there some information that ODOT can give us about what kinds of things to focus on or pay attention to in that micromobility kinds of regulations that are?
4007.
Yeah.
So we will have a more complete presentation for you all in September. We're still in the implementation phase, but as they mentioned, you know, there's a lot of focus on these imposter e-bikes.
Right.
And so you'll probably see communications from local governments rolling out about that. That's probably the biggest piece, but there are other pieces that we'll talk about more in depth in September.
And I'll just add on the governor's vision work group process. At first, community livability and safety subgroup will meet next Thursday at 9:30 a.m. And those are on the YouTube channel, governor's YouTube channel, I believe. So or so you can watch the conversation. The first meeting will be more of a table setting, kind of explaining bike ped related issues, safety related issues. And then the next meeting, which will happen, I think a week or two later, we'll start kind of conversations about just funding scenarios. And so they will look at different funding scenarios and what the impacts of those adjusted funding scenarios would be. And ultimately, the goal is those work groups will make develop consensus around a recommendation.
I might just offer, Raina had suggested heading to the governor's web page for this work group. There's a way you can sign up for updates there, but that's really important too, because there's gonna be opportunities for public comment. So
Yes.
or public participation. So you want to be apprised of that if you want to make your opinions known in whatever capacity you can. A personal capacity, right? Given your roles in this committee, and so there will be opportunities for public engagement if you want to take advantage of that. So those updates and signing up for those updates will be really important to get the first sense of when those are good.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
So thank you. And maybe Roberto, you can put a note to include that in the follow-up. And
Yeah.
please send that information out to your networks. It was, wonderful to hear Sheila talk about 800 people showing up in 1971 for the bike bill, original signing. And so the more people that we can have to show up and just add their voice, their support for continuing to invest in active transportation solutions.
Are there funding scenarios that don't involve the increase in taxes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the work group's mandate is looking at various scenarios. One would be a scenario where there would be additional funding on the table, and some of the other options are efficiencies, right? Or how funding can be adjusted or even redirected. So there's a whole suite of options on the table, and we'll have to see what comes out of the work groups, conversations over the course of the next few months, but they're not focused on a singular method to accomplishing an end.
Go ahead.
Well, just a point of, I can't recall, I believe when we have an opinion, we say, I am Beth Young, I am a member of OBPAC, but I am speaking on my own behalf. That's what you say, right? Okay. Just wanted to reiterate that for people to remember.
We appreciate that, but yeah, that's the guidance. Yeah,
Okay.
It's to make clear that, you might participate in official capacity at on a body, right? In this case, not OBPAC, but that you're sharing, personal position. Yeah.
And I guess you wouldn't say OBPAC, you'd say Oregon Bicycle Pedestrian.
Yes, because other folks would not know.
Like,
Very good. Yes.
Yes, you're
They might
OBPAC,
know.
that is.
Okay, this is a communication request, but I'm looking at this page for all of the fellow OPAC members, and I think it's a bit deceptive to just give the raw value. I would much prefer to see these millions in relation to the total
operating budget of each category, so we can get a relative relationship. Cause this doesn't tell me anything, it's just the numbers related to the, I have no idea, is
So what,
the highway fund much, you know, like, I'd like to see it relative to that.
So like what percentage of 5 million? is
Exactly,
Driver training?
exactly, yeah, thank you,
Yeah. I am confident I'm good.
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are gonna head back upstairs. We have a TC.
Yeah.
If they figured out the internet.
Good.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.
Big snack, I bet ours are better.
Okay. So, next up, Denton Burn.
Yeah, do we need a break? Do we need to take a
Yes.
break before another presentation?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move our break up and go.
Let's do that real quick.
Yeah.
All right, everyone back at.
I sent guys, it's been over.
10:27.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thanks for mentioning.
Yeah. We started a little bit. Although Sheila wasn't here, Andre wasn't here, Carrie wasn't here for a ride yesterday, so missed you.
I missed you.
Yeah, on the ride, but
See the nice picture.
Yeah.
yeah, now you'll get to see the,
This is great.
yeah, now you'll get to see the concepts. When we were out there, it was really cool to stand out there yesterday, so hopefully you guys can visualize some of the stuff again, like where we were yesterday. But then now you'll get to see like the planning work that was behind some of the things that we rode through and or saw yesterday. So, yeah, and then Sheila, I don't think you've seen a lot of the, some of the projects in Salem that we've done. So anyway, so that's what I was asked to do was, yeah, to kind of debrief you guys. I'm glad Roger's here in case anyone has any more technical questions. A lot of, I mean, just to be honest with you guys, a lot of the, proudest projects that I think are the real highlights of my time here at ODOT. Started with Sheila Lyons. When I first started, she gave me tours of the bike infrastructure around Corvallis area. And I remember standing on the couplet in Philomath, which you guys saw on our last, one of our last tours that we did together. And Sheila stood there and said, this is the dumbest thing, something like that, that we built this one-way thing in Philomath, and then the bike route that the community uses runs into it, and then there's no way for them to get downtown 3 blocks that way, unless you're a really confident cyclist and you want to navigate, you know, Frogger on a bicycle over 4 lanes of cars. And Sheila and I stood there. I never would have thought of it if Sheila hadn't pointed that out, because I just wasn't that familiar with the infrastructure yet. And then all these years later, the last picture on my slides here is a picture of that 2-way cycle track on the state system in Philomath. And then the idea went from Sheila to Roger drawing a concept on a whiteboard to being implemented with leverage, active transportation leverage, and SWIP 1% bike ped money. So anyway, so leveraging is the theme today. And with Sheila here, yeah, the words this morning, I'm gonna try not to cry. This is my last presentation at ODOT. I'm leaving. Tomorrow's my last day. You don't know this. And it's been a great run, and this will be 18 years in transportation directly. And I think the position that I'm stepping into, I hope, with a land trust in Corvallis, doing urban trails work, It still has a nexus, of course, with transportation, but it's not gonna be that same direct living it and breathing it day in and day out. So I'm gonna try not to cry too much because I can't claim allergies down here in the basement, which I do a lot this time of year when I'm crying. But I am comfortable crying in front of you all. I already did a bunch this morning, just so you know. So anyway, so let's go ahead and get started, Roberto. So thank you. Yeah, so anyway, super fun to do the tour yesterday. So I was gonna touch on a couple things, and you guys are becoming kind of experts, and I know Brad, a lot of this is new, like the funding pots, what funds what, how we, how we piece these things together, because that is the name of the game these days with the funding landscape that ODOT is currently in. The times were different at some point in time before my era at ODOT, but for the last 10 years, I will say that this kind of leveraging and piecing things together strategy has been the name of the game. So I'm going to talk about that a lot today. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about those studies I've been doing. Some of us talked about it yesterday out there, but what we're doing ahead of projects to hopefully then be able to leverage those projects with this creative mishmash of funding. And that's the gist of it. So go ahead, Roberto, thanks. So the funding pots, you guys have already heard about some of them today, right? So that's really nice. But Oregon Community Paths, that's there at the bottom. But I mentioned yesterday, active transportation leverage, that was a one-time thing that the Oregon Transportation Commission, who's meeting upstairs today, right, kind of allocated with some funding that was available. Great Streets, you've heard about. We've had 2 rounds of grants for that. That was an internal grant program to ODOT. So I'll talk about that with one of the projects. And then the All Roads Transportation Safety, or ARTS, that's federal dollars, and that is a regular ongoing thing. So it's not legislated, it's not Oregon Transportation Commission, it's above us, kind of at the state level, coming into the agency. And those are really good leverage opportunities as well. So those projects. And the Salem project through the couplet that we're going to talk about, and I'll show you some more pictures, that's a leveraging opportunity between ARTS and Great Streets. So those are the pots of money that I'm going to talk about that helped make these things happen that we got the check out yesterday, and hopefully you'll see again in the future. So go ahead, Roberto. Thank you. So this was our like second stop yesterday. So this is just a really confusing spot. I still have a hard time being oriented in Salem, which Ian explained to me yesterday, might be justified. But anyway, so the crux of this project was the signs, right? And this was an arts project, so it was about people coming, traveling westbound, and people in vehicles crashing, causing crashes enough that were statistically rose up to receive arts funding, because it's a very data-driven program. And so they look at where crashes are happening, either in a pattern, in one spot, or through a corridor, and then that makes it eligible for this federal funding. Well, apparently the signage maybe was the issue. I don't know. I didn't pay as much attention to that part of the project, right? Because I was just trying to leverage it. But to the point where building this thing, with the signs over the road and placing it, far enough out that vehicles and people in vehicles would get to where they needed to be at the right time, blah, blah, blah. It was shown as a safety countermeasure to prevent crashes. That said, as we explained yesterday when we were out there, this was like a really key spot for the multimodal network, right? And so there was also this opportunity to maybe look at it to make other improvements. So this became active transportation leverage dollars, one-time leverage dollars with arts funding. And some of the things we talked about yesterday, I pointed out, was like this corner that had this right turn lane and all the pedestrians, remember we saw tons of folks here, lots of services in this area for the unhoused. And so there were tons of folks there. And so the project team asked the question of, do we need to even have that slip lane, right turn lane where all these pedestrians are crossing? We also did we did counts out there. I should have looked this up before I came. We did counts up there to justify the closing of that right turn lane. And they counted several hundred pedestrians in one day. It was one of the highest counts for pedestrians I'd ever seen. And so that really helped to make the case to close it. So they closed in that whole corner like we saw, which means that the right turning movement for people in cars is very sharp, and they're going to take it really slowly, or they're going to go another way and not make that right-hand turn. And so pedestrians were protected And then there was a whole bunch of green pavement markings out there. There was a bike signal and our contraflow cycle track, or no, our contraflow bike lane. Anyway, and with vertical delineation. So you guys saw all that out there yesterday. So that's how that one came to be. So go ahead in the next one. I don't have a ton of slides, just so you guys know, because we don't have like a million projects. So here's some more pictures of some of the infrastructure that we talked about yesterday. So here's our contraflow to make the connection with the existing planning work that the city had done to get people, to where to connect them into the whole network. Here's that blue tactile guide strip. Is that what it's called? Thank you. That Roger talked about yesterday, newer guidance for our blind, low vision community members to ensure that they don't walk into the bike facility and stay in the pedestrian facility. And then, just all the sexy stuff here, all the green, there's a bike signal right there, all that stuff. We didn't ride through this intersection like southbound, but that was what that one was oriented for, was southbound. We rode northeast kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So anyway, some more pictures of that project. So let's see what's next, Roberto. What else do we have? Okay, so this was the one where we stood right here, right on this corner. And Brad, I heard you talking about it later in the evening. You're like, wow, I haven't seen a lot of bike lanes where it just goes from like 6 feet to 5 feet to 4 feet to 3 feet to 0 feet. Right against a curb. And we were all standing right at that curb, right? And then all those trucks were. So this is, and I think Ian said this yesterday, but I'm just gonna restate. This is how a lot of people get to I-5. So the volumes that you were feeling standing on that corner, were legit intense, right? Because it was huge trucks that were just turning right by us, right? And all these folks are taking MLK Parkway to I-5, many of them. So the volumes are 18,000 vehicles a day through this couplet on the north end of Salem's downtown. And so what we did was one of those urban design verification studies. That's a mouthful, but UDVs for short, just because you guys need another acronym. We don't throw enough at you. And what we did was we tried to find a concept, and this is another one where I think Roger and I had talked about it like 8 years ago at some point. But anyway, we tried to find a concept for improvements through the corridor. And then we did the study, and then we were therefore ready to apply for a Great Streets grant, which is a program that wants to leverage. And so then we're leveraging onto an arts project, which is the safety program that's coming in 27 to 30. That's our time frame. And the arts project is focused on the signals right here. Like that's it, right? It's just like that sign thing, right? It's like one spot where they're doing a safety improvement with federal dollars. And the safety improvement there is intended to change the signalization so that it's safer for pedestrians to cross. That was one of the benefits. And then I'm leveraging onto that host project. I think of it as like a host body. I watched a lot of Star Trek growing up, but anyway, and then taking it like all the way south through the couplet, right? So it's like bigger than the host project, but that's cool. And restriping the whole thing. And I'll show some more slides about that. This concept though, right here, we were standing on this corner and it was like, where the heck do the cyclists go who are traveling northbound and then want to head northeast? Then we figured out that ODOT owned this parcel right here. And so we're actually able to ramp them off into a separated path because there literally was no other choice unless you moved curb lines, right? And because that bike lane literally goes away, right? And so we'll be able to protect them. So it's a huge protected corner is really what it is, which I hadn't thought about until just now. And then they'll go back down to the bike lane. Now, cycling on this northbound and then cycling on MLK, that's a confident cyclist route, but at least it'll be they'll have a safe way to, continue their path. And then this was the other tricky thing that we couldn't picture yesterday, or I felt like it was really hard to picture, was for that southbound cyclist. And there's tons of services down here in the couplet, right? And so that southbound cyclist, they were gonna have to cross a right turn, like pretty much like an off ramp slip lane and there was no markings there anyway. And then that bike lane like picked back up over here and there was just nothing, right? And so what we're doing is a protected corner here. And then using a neighborhood street, so it's like a 1 block sort of greenway, low stress network kind of utilization. And then an enhanced crossing to get them to the southbound of the coupling. So, you know, your confident cyclist, agro cyclist might not go that way. We understand that, but this will be a low stress option for lower, you know, for folks who don't want to just trudge across this, you know, huge long crossing distance. So anyway, a little hard to picture all of that, but that's the concept. So that's the very north end. And then Roberto, I'll have you continue with the slides. And then what's oh no, I didn't put it in the order that I thought I did. So
Can I ask one question back on that other slide?
yeah.
What are those blue areas in the intersection?
That's gonna be concrete. So we're making basically pedestrian islands, right? Refuge islands. So that, and channelizing the vehicles, which will hopefully also hope to slow them down.
So those will be raised.
They'll be raised, exactly. Exactly. So that whole intersection should feel tighter, more defined, and hopefully it's gonna slow kind of everyone down and then give people biking and walking more options. So, okay, so I went from this to the UDV. I'll come back to the striping for this. I remember now how I did this. Just a few things on my mind lately. So this work that we did, this concept development work came out of the studies that we've been doing. So I'll go ahead and have you, Roberto, you can go to the next one. That's perfect. So these urban design verification studies, like I said, sorry about the name, it's a mouthful. But basically the quick version of this is that ODOT has a huge disconnect between long-range planning, transportation system plans over here that are these 20-year plans that communities do. Newport has one, blah, blah, blah. And they have these big concepts in them. And they say we want all the crossings and all the multimodal things. They have specific projects sometimes, but a lot of times the state system doesn't have very specific projects. And then project delivery that Bridget referred to over here, which is where the stuff happens, right? And the things get designed and built. And in between that, there's this huge space where we don't know where the crossing is, what the crossing requires. Is there a flashing beacon? Is there a pedestrian? Is there a bulb out? Is there striping? Like, what are we going? And so these transportation system plans, not to knock them, but they really are very general in nature, and our engineers want them to be because things change. And so our engineers actually try not to let them get too specific. But then the problem is they're aspirational, yeah. And then the problem is though, is then a project comes through, I'm trying to leverage onto it because that's the only way I can like get anything done these days. And I don't know what the solutions are. So we started doing these urban design verification studies, which I hope becomes the process that's baked into our CIP, which is kind of the new way, the new project runway that ODOT's developing a new process for right now. My hope is that this need for these types of studies goes away and it becomes just the way we do business. But for the time being, we started doing it, and every region is doing some version of this. Region 1 calls it something a little bit different, you know, ped safety studies. We were all trying to do this in some different way to bridge that gap. And then I, being my goofy self, made a coloring book of the urban design verification studies. And so that's what this is a picture of. So there's a coloring book online if you want to revisit this topic. And I created a little super shiro because there's 4 girls in my family. So my mother raised us with the term super shiro, and we call her UDV. So anyway, that was just me having fun. So we can go to the next slide. And so basically what this is, and I've already said that, is a focused study on a specific kind of smaller segment of the state system that's an internal guiding document for ODOT to kind of say, what the heck are we going to do here? And what we did was we looked for places where ADA projects were going to come through, where the pavement was really poor. We tried to get ahead of projects that are likely to happen. And that's where we went to do these studies. And so, and we were looking for low-cost active transportation improvements, not moving curbs, not building new sidewalk necessarily, but where are the crossings and how can we restripe it, right? So low-cost things. And then we did community outreach again, because the community might have been engaged 10 years ago when that transportation system plan happened, but we need to re-engage and say, where do you need to cross today, right? So that's the point of these whole things. Let's see what the next slide is. You know, anyway, great. So this is what I was hoping for. So yesterday we talked about this, but we didn't ride it all because actually we were not comfortable. I mean, I wouldn't have been comfortable taking you guys on the couplet in Salem. And so what we were able to do through these studies is actually look at the lane widths, identify the urban context. I mean, ODOT has this great guidance now, which Sheila referred to, our highway design manual. It's context-based. There's 6 different contexts. You identify the context. As a result of that context, is it a downtown? Is it an urban mix? Is it a commercial corridor? Then we have guidance for lane widths, and then we have guidance for how frequent crossings should be, right? So this gives us the chance to like work through all of that. So we went through the whole, so we were standing at the top where number 1 is, that's where we're standing. And then we're talking about the whole couplet. And then we got to the south end of downtown. There's the bike ped bridge that we rode over yesterday. And then the south end of downtown, and this was Willamette University. So this is where we were in the end. So I'll show you the solutions that we came up with that we're gonna be doing with Great Streets. So through this part of the couplet, and it's not rocket science, right? But again, these studies just allowed us to like have the time to actually look at the lane widths, right? And what we found was there were like all these 15 and 16-foot travel lanes through that couplet. And everyone in the community was like, people are driving so fast. Of course they are. Those are like the widest lanes ever. These are the widest lanes like I found in all my work. And so our guidance tells us we can go down to 11 to 12-foot travel lanes. And now we know a tier 1 or a tier 2 bike facility, meaning tier 1 vertically separated, tier 2 separated with buffers, would be what our guidance would point to. And so then we work our way through the process. So these different cross sections, you can see, you know, there's a segment where we can fit a 2 to 4 foot buffer with a 5 to 6 foot bike lane. There's you know, changes, right? The widths kind of vary a little bit, right? So we had to literally, you know, but this gives us a chance to go through and be like, from here to here, we can do this. From here to here, we can do this. From here to here, we can do that, right? And so that's what we did. So that's the north end of the couplet. And then I think the next slide might show the south end. Yep, and so then you work your way through downtown Salem, and a bunch of us were staying, you know, right around here yesterday, right, on the couplet. I got to hear it during the night. And of course, and so I don't expect you to like read all these cross sections, but just to show you, right, we were able to like outline. So this will be handed to that project team when they start designing this project. And it's like, here's the money from Great Streets to do the thing. Here's the concept, you know, run with it, right? So, so that I'm hoping that just striping in the couplet is going to slow people down. There's still going to be high volumes. There's still going to be big trucks. But at least for all those people going to the services, I talked to a lot of people that were picking up free food in the couplet. There was like several churches that have food delivery. The bottle drop where all these folks were going, right? Hopefully it'll be safer for them moving through there. Next slide, I think we get to the crossings. And so that was the other big question is, no, not at all. After this one. So one of the things that Ian mentioned you all might be interested in, which I think is always a hard thing to talk about, are what are the compromises and the trade-offs that we have to make, right? So we talked about this, I call it affectionately, and I won't be sad to maybe leave some of these challenges, I will admit, but affectionately M&M, maintenance and mobility. And the mobility is really the Mobility Advisory Committee, which is the MAC, which I actually love presenting to this group, and I'm sad that I won't take this. I actually probably should have already taken this to the MAC, but I didn't. My Kinley told me I didn't have to, but anyway. And so according to our highway design manual, the entire couplet, that entire system should have a vertically separated bike facility. There should be something vertical between all those cars, right? And that is not in the plan because maintenance doesn't want to maintain or have the ability to maintain or fund the space behind those delineators. And 2, the Mobility Advisory Committee or the freight industry would really push back on it. And so my strategy for dealing with M&M is to get the space now, the real estate now, add the delineation later. So my hope is that as we continue to work through some of these challenges, hopefully our maintenance folks get more money at some point in time. Hopefully the MAC becomes a little less empowered at some point in time. Just said that publicly, but anyway, you know, we're really prioritizing bike and ped safety. And I think it's a good, I mean, I think this is a good strategy because we are gonna have the space to be able to add vertical elements. So that was my, you know, what are the trade-offs, right? So I just want you to know that I'm aware that the whole thing should be vertically separated. All right, so moving on, I think we're gonna talk about crossings. Yeah, so then that was the other great thing we had an opportunity to do. There was an elementary school on the couplet. It's right on the east side right here. So we met with the principal, we talked to them. I had received a couple of inquiries over the years from parents whose kids are at this school. And I had a blind or in low vision community member reach out to me about the couplet. So I was able to bring that, where are they trying to cross, and bring that into it. And then we identified, and then we looked at our target spacing that our highway design manual has. We know that in this type of context, we should have crossings, enhanced comfortable crossings for people about this many feet apart, 250 to 500 feet apart, you know, that kind of thing. And so we were able to identify those locations, and they weren't always where we thought they would be. Like, we really thought that we'd be a block north for this one, and then I went to the bottle drop, and then I hung out and watched different people walking to get their food deliveries, and we moved it a block, you know, from where we thought that it would be. So it is, I mean, there's nothing that replaces getting out there and seeing how people are moving around. So that's where the enhanced crossings will be for the north end. Great Streets funded. And then I think there's one more slide that takes us to the south end of the couplet where we ended yesterday. And we went under the road. There was an undercrossing. So I mentioned that we included some funding in our Great Streets application to add illumination there, hopefully make it comfortable, safer feeling, and make it more inviting for people. And then an enhanced crossing on the road level. And then again, looking for low-cost solutions means not moving curb lines. What do we do with the existing roadway where it is? Well, we couldn't fit bike lanes down there for the most part, right? And so with the existing striping, and so we added a path right where we pulled, went through the undercrossing. That's right where it started. And there'll be a path or a concept anyway. We'll see if the money takes us all the way. But a path on the north side off the roadway for the university, right? And then there's actually another enhanced crossing with those flashing beacons up here. So it would get the students, and there's a bridge that goes over the road 12th to 13th up there. So anyway, so those were all the concepts came out of the study. So you can see anyway how, you know, using these studies to get to the real implementable solutions, and then hopefully we match up the funding. So that is an example of a UDV study, and hopefully Great Streets will take it to the finish line. What else do I have? I think I'm almost done. Oh yeah, good. The key takeaways. And I'm sure you've heard all this. Finding solutions ahead of the projects is key, because otherwise what happens is that striping project starts, or that ADA project starts, and they're like, we don't have the time, we don't have the budget, we can't do the community outreach. That's a biggie, right? To work through changing the striping or we don't know where the crossing should be, blah, blah, blah. And therefore, active transportation liaison that keeps coming to me and asking to interfere with my projects. We don't have the time or the budget. We can't figure out what, you know, how to add your stuff in, right? So finding the solutions ahead of time, that's what I hope that our new process, CIP process does. Our agency can be creative with funding. I think you've probably seen that and heard that from a lot of us over the time. I know you hear about funding constraints here, but probably as a result of that, it makes us all the more creative, right? Like, we're all looking how to work the system in positive ways. Leveraging is possible. It's complicated right now with the scarcity mindset that our agency is in. There's going to be even more pressure to be on time, on scope, and on budget, which means that my whole strategy, our whole strategy here of leveraging is going to be even harder. Starting earlier, having good relationships with the folks that are leading the projects and stuff like that. So this is something I'm hoping that our state level headquarters folks can continue to keep on the minds of all the people that are saying, you gotta be on time, you gotta be on budget. Well, there's no other way for us to get anything done other than leveraging these days. So hopefully people maintain some awareness there. That's gonna take ongoing work. And then compromises are inevitable, right? And I'm sure that you've seen that out there too. But hopefully you've also seen that we can, you know, we can get to gooder. right? And that gooder is still better than nothing or leaving it as it is, right? And so I think that's really kind of the way to go about things in this current landscape. So I think that's pretty much it. Oh, the last picture. Yeah, so this is the two-way cycle track. Sheila, I have some amazing photos of this, Sheila. I have an amazing photo of a 4-year-old who was not riding the cycle track, but she was on the sidewalk with her parents, and I was like, would you please let your child get into the cycle track so I can take some pictures? He uses that in presentations all the time. Yeah. And there's like this picture of this tiny little human being in the cycle track with huge just trucks right next to her. And I have a little bit of guilt about the fact that I completely made that happen. But not that much guilt. Still pretty great. Anyway, so yeah. So anyway, if you guys have any questions, but we probably will have to move on pretty soon. Yeah.
Okay, mine's just kind of as a planner and a local person.
Yeah.
Question about how much the city of Salem or the county of Marion.
Yes.
Dealt, how much you worked with them.
Yeah.
How much leverage with them was important, how much community input was important.
Yeah. Yeah, good question. So we definitely, these have been really great. These UDVs have definitely evolved. So I literally yesterday had a meeting with I'm doing a workshop I'm doing a UDV in 3 small towns, Hubbard, Amity, and St. Paul, like little towns. I'm really trying to get into these small towns before the ADA project comes through, so we can find some crossings and things like that. And the city managers are super engaged, city administrators sometimes, right? You know that, are super involved. And the Marion County was there because their road ran into our road in St. Paul. There's one intersection with some flashing lights, right? ODOT's this part of it, the county's this part of it, right? And we were all looking at actually a quick build solution using tough curb on the corners. There's some in Region 1 in Portland, some low cost solutions where a big truck can still go over it, but everyone in a vehicle is going to like take it slowly to go around it. Some really interesting creative things. So we work pretty closely with all that's to say, we work pretty closely with them. And then as far as outreach goes, like through Salem, we did 2 rounds of outreach where we're doing our best. It's hard, right? Doing our best at doing both an online open house where people can go into a map and click on things and add comments and say, I want to cross here and that kind of thing. And an in-person like tabling event. So that's been kind of how we've done it. And trying to get everything translated into Spanish, and I get to use my Spanish and things like that. But not perfect, but about as good as I think we can kind of do. And they're also 8 to 10 month studies. So they're also like pretty quick.
It sounds like these were initiated by you.
Yeah, actually Ken Chonkweiler, if you've met him, and Amanda Salyer and myself all in Region 2, we kind of, we started doing it, but then again, like I said, I found out that the other regions were all doing it in a way. What do you call them in Region 1?
We do corridor investment strategy.
Corridor investment.
We might have presented on the one on McLaughlin Boulevard, Oregon 99 Portland, but that now, we did that in 2021 and 2022. We got 15 million of Great Streets funding to finish implementing that, and already had another 18 million set aside in the 24-27 stint. So that corridor got 33 million in 6 years, kind of as a result of that effort. And then we just did another one on US 30 bypass Sandy out in like the Park Roads neighborhood. So that one we applied for Great Streets, didn't get it, but are trying to fund some of those projects.
Yep. Yep. And I'm looking at a road diet in South Lincoln City through one of these too. That was called out in the TSP, but needs traffic analysis, needs to be studied, and needs to do outreach, blah, blah, blah. So we're doing that.
It kind of starts with
Communities
having a good TSP.
Yes, it does. It does start with that. Yep. Yep. I don't know how we're doing for time, so. Anyway, I'm around all day, right? So if you have any questions or want to chat anymore, but thanks for being interested in it. Thanks for the ride yesterday. Turns out the timing of this was just like a really wonderful way to end my time at ODOT. So really appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Jenna.
Yeah, thanks.
So I'd just like to say really quickly, until 2 years ago, I lived in Bend, and Chris back there was my active transportation liaison. And I would have thought that there was no way I could move anywhere else in Oregon and have that level of commitment and activeness. And I moved to Region 2, and here's Jenna. So wherever you are, you should get to know your active transportation liaison, because they really know how to get things done, and we can't move without. So thank you so much for all your work. Okay, next up is elections, and since I'm one of the people being considered, I'm going to turn it over to Ian.
Sure, thank you. So as per your bylaws, a election must be held before July of each year, and so we are here. So for our annual election of co-chairs, there are 2 spots for co-chairs. They're currently held, of course, by Dave and Nolan. You all will remember that we sent an email in advance asking you to nominate individuals to serve. 5 individuals were nominated, only 4 have accepted that nomination, which is, of course, all good and fine. The 4 people are Dave, Nolan, Carrie, and Brad. And so, because there are 4 candidates and 2 seats, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and have a vote per seat. And so we'll tackle what I'll call co-chair seat 1 first, and then you can vote for whomever you like. Each member of OBPAC has a vote. You can vote for any of those 4 candidates, unless there's any last minute nominations. Okay. You can vote for any of those 4 candidates. The person with the most votes in that, and I'll call each person by name, will then become co-chair for that seat. Does that make sense? Any questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I didn't know about this until a minute ago, and I've only been here, this is my first meeting. Maybe I don't think I should accept the nomination.
That's your right. Okay, perfect. Okay, then we're down to 3. Okay, that makes my math a
You may
little
want
bit
to
easier.
confirm everybody else wants to be considered.
Uh,
Yeah.
do nominees vote? And if
Yes.
I'm online, how do I vote?
I'll call your name.
Okay.
All right. Great. So for what I'll call seat 1, the OBPAC co-chair, I will go ahead and call people's names, and you let me know who you'd like to vote for. So for seat 1, Brad, who would you like to vote for?
Wait, there's 2 positions, so I get to vote for 2 people?
Sure, let's do it that way. I like that approach.
You have to do it
Yeah,
publicly?
yeah.
Can I have a minute to think about it?
You sure can. Yeah.
Nolan,
Okay, and who's your second?
Dave.
Okay, great. Thank you. Andre,
I'm only gonna cast a single vote.
okay,
Carrie.
okay. Del,
I will say for Dave and Nolan also.
Okay.
They've done such a good job so far.
Carrie, or Kathy, I'm
Kathy.
sorry.
I'll cast a vote for Carrie.
Okay.
And a vote for Dave.
I guess I'll vote for me and Dave.
Okay. Carrie,
Nolan and Carrie.
okay. Brad.
Nolan, Dave, and Carrie.
Can't do.
Nice try.
That's not fair.
I know it's not.
I know it's.
You can abstain.
I can't.
Right?
You could, I preferred you didn't.
Does that get us into a tie breaking?
Depends. I'm not gonna say the count to influence Brad's decision.
You're killing me. I haven't been around to even know any of these people or what's going on.
All wonderful people.
Yeah, that's-
I can share that.
You have a wealth of choices.
There's no wrong vote.
Okay, Porter, what am I to do here?
Andre, would you like to cast your second vote?
I will cast my second vote following Brad's vote.
Okay, that sounds good. Brad, back to you.
Did you go?
Of course, I don't.
Wait, you have this. Oh, okay,
Oh.
Dave.
I mean, between three people. Dave has a vote, so we'll see.
Okay,
I'm gonna vote for Carrie and Nolan.
Hmm.
Brad. This is exciting.
Feel like we're watching an episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, you don't wanna know what happens for the person that.
Yeah, that's-
It's a very powerful position.
Well, I mean, who did you vote for, Nolan?
I did me and Dave, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Carrie? Nolan and Carrie.
Everybody on the spot.
Exactly. Dave voted for not himself.
Correct.
Why? You obviously want to do it because you're up there.
Okay, let's not grill Dave. Brad,
Okay, I don't know how to do this, isn't.
Just flip a coin.
Also remember, there's another election in a year.
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
So
All
throughout
three
the
of
course
us
of your term of 4 years, there will be 4 elections that you'll get to
Yeah.
participate in,
And you'll.
and they'll all
probably
be
a
just as
chair.
easy. Yeah, this is great. Yeah,
Everybody kind of gets.
this is the first public one. I think in the past I have casts of
Yeah.
it's been
secret
written.
vote, but whatever, you know.
It's been a ballot.
that is
Secret.
bad.
That's
I
okay.
know.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it just hasn't been
We
contested.
haven't had more than 2 people.
Yeah,
Oh, is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like I casted a vote at some point.
Have we had 2?
We casted a vote at some point.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we're in this, we're in it, that's good, it's good, this is, yeah.
I don't know.
I think I need to abstain, I don't know, I can't vote.
Okay, Andre, then I guess it's.
Okay, Nolan.
Okay. Great, thank you, everyone, that's unfortunate, we're tired. All right, so Brad, last chance.
How about anonymous?
I would do an anonymous survey at this point.
Yeah,
I would do
okay.
it.
We'll send a survey out.
I don't know what. You know, people in the US do that every single election.
Okay. So we will send out a survey here in the next few weeks and we will pester you until you vote. Until you vote. So, in which case it will be anonymous to you all, but Roberto and I will know, just so we can ensure that everybody votes once and that everybody has voted. Sound good? Cool, thank you.
But we'll still have to follow public meeting laws and we will announce the top 2 folks and then we'll need an approval from the committee on that.
Yeah, you're right. That's,
Can it be over email?
no.
Can we just vote now, but with piece of paper?
Sure,
Can we just do it
Okay,
now?
let's do that.
And so we don't
Let's
just
do it.
drag this out.
Well,
We're gonna
yeah,
sticky note.
oh, yeah, yeah, so we're just gonna reset, we're doing it all over again. We all
Yeah.
just cast our.
okay,
votes.
so here's how it stands. So Nolan has 5 votes, Harry has 4 votes, and Dave has 4 votes.
Oh. Maybe, yeah,
So functionally, Nolan has 1.
So. we just vote
AC.
I
between those
think
2.
maybe Carrie and Dave could just talk to us as a committee, like, you know? Tell us about your experience, do you think there'd be value in switching a new chair, you know, like that's the way I see it, the health of the committee is chairs that are giving us.
Not particularly. I mean, I'm not married to the idea, so I would defer to Dave in a minute. You know what I mean? Carrie's got a lot on her plate. I could always jump up next year. You know, it's totally gravy with me, really, because I'm still kind of new in this field as well.
But first of all, I always nominate newer people on the committee because I think getting everyone's participation is good, and I think new people bring new ideas, which are important. I was willing to serve because in the past, you know, we've had only 2 people, and so I didn't want to take myself out. But given the fact that we do have, I think I will just withdraw my nomination.
Oh, but it's done. That made me want to vote for Dave.
Can't vote for me
There
anymore.
we go, it's all on the ballot.
There it is.
It's
Okay.
done.
Carrie, you're still willing to serve? Oh, you're muted.
I surely will.
Okay, great. All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Congratulations to Nolan and Carrie.
You're not off the hook, Dave. You're gonna be my best. You're gonna be my best email buddy now.
Nolan's got it all under control. Sure.
It's nice to have people who want to be leaders of it.
Oh. Dell, it is your time to shine.
Am I not? Can I get up there?
Sure. Oh,
We're about 15 minutes. And I want to make sure we can break through the event.
Yes.
Yeah, I should probably make this really short since we're so far behind schedule, but also I'm such an old fossil and been around longer than most of all you put together, so my story actually starts in World War II. I was born the very last day of the war, VJ Day. And my father at the time was serving in the military, and in fact, he was in Fort Lewis, right up, he was a conscientious objector, so he was working in Madigan Hospital there. And my mother, at the same time, was in the other Washington, DC. And that's where I was born, actually Maryland, well, Tacoma Park, Maryland. It's a suburb of Washington, DC. 1945, so more than 80 years ago. I was sort of a nerdy kid, a sickly kid. I missed a lot of school because of serious asthma attacks, and I was no good at sports. Always the last person to get called for playground teams, and as a result, I was very shy and withdrawn and antisocial, and when I got into what was I gonna say? The one thing I did that was quite physical. I think I was about 10 or 11 years old and working on a bicycling merit badge, and did a 50-mile bike ride that started in Maryland, went down to Washington, DC, went down to Mount Vernon in Virginia, and back, and 50 miles. And the one thing in my mind is, well, why are we stopping so often? Why are these adults acting so tired and thirsty and stuff? And I just wanted to go, go, go. I don't remember exactly. I think I was about 10 or 11 years old at the time. But I had never been exposed to cycling as a sport. I think it was between 7th and 8th grade. My family moved from DC to California, and I got acquainted with a whole new bunch. I was still very shy, socially inept. It was only when we were doing Halloween trick and treating, and we'd be sprinting down to the end of the block, and one of my friends who was like top athlete in the school says, you should come out for track because well, no, I'm not out there. And he said, well, you're the first one down the end of the block. And I said, well, you guys weren't trying, and yet, yes, we were. So I finally went out for track in high school, and ended up setting some school records and so forth. And then this slide, I started bicycle racing. I think my first race was when I was 18 years old, and a close friend of mine was actually an Olympian in 1964 and 68. And I would I would ride my bike around the neighborhood. One of the things I like to do as a nerdy loner was I get a little road map from, the gas stations always handed out road maps, Ben, and what I would do is go out on my own and try to ride on every street on the map. And
Like grid,
yeah, just,
Grid it? Yeah.
I did all these streets, so I'll fill that in and do the next street. And I'm doing this when I'm just a teenager and doing it all on my own.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'd be out riding and meet this neighbor friend who was about my age, actually 1 year younger. And he would ride with me occasionally. And anyway, turns out he was an Olympic bicycle racer. And he invited me to my first race, loaned me a set of racing wheels, and from then on, it's just been more and more and more. And so I go back to the previous slide. This was my first moment of fame. My club president decided to send us to Sports Illustrated, so I got into those faces in the crowd thing, and that was my first moment of fame. You notice we're wearing a little leather strap helmet, and our bikes then were true 10 speeds, 2 in the front and 5 in the back, and we're
Must have
still
been in
using.
the saddle a lot,
We were-
standing.
We were still using toe clips and leather straps, and yeah, so then I was in college then, and then after I graduated from college in Southern California, I moved out to first San Jose for a few years, and then up here to Oregon. I moved to Oregon in '69, so I've been here a long time. I was still a very active racer. In fact, remember Alpenrose Velodrome was one of the only tracks on the West Coast at the time. I had experience riding 2 different tracks in California, and Alpenrose was actually built in '67, which was 2 years before I came. But then we had nationals there a couple of times. I was very good friend with Franz Powell's, who was a bike shop owner and instrumental in getting a lot of the racing organization here. Anyway,
Del, I'm sorry,
you want
we're,
me to get going?
yes,
Yeah.
please.
All right. So anyway, I was working as I was a president of a bike club back then, Pearl City Wheelman, mostly a racing club. But we were also interested in bike advocacy, and we actually lobbied for the bike bill back in 1971, and the bottle bill at the same time, and they both passed that year. So anyway, I ran my first marathon in '74. I was tired of riding in the rain in the winter, so I started running mostly just in the winters. and anyway, and then I just wanted to do more and more, so I ended up running my first ultra marathon, 78 and 50 miler, and since then I've done more than 100 of each, and some of the highlights, I've also done a lot of canoe racing, paddling with my son Eric here, and that's the Baker Bay race that was out on the mouth of the Columbia River. I did 19 this Death Valley Cup is, as a awarded if you do the Furnace Creek 508 bike race and the, Bedwater 135-mile run in the same year, so I was the third person to get that,
Isn't that nonstop? Furnace Creek,
yeah, yeah.
nonstop for a couple days?
Yeah, that first picture you showed me was from Furnace Creek. And then this one I think was actually in Newport. You have a 24 or 48-hour run down there in South Beach State Park. So
Yeah.
anyway, so that's me.
You've been busy. Thank you for your work on the bike bill.
Yes.
Cardiovascular beat. Well, really quickly, does anyone have any business they'd like to share? And then we just don't have to go over everyone. In the interest of time.
I want to talk briefly about the bike bill. Okay, so bike bill event will be out on the Capitol Mall. We'll head up there right after lunch. If you do have your bike and would like to participate in the bike bus coming on over with the kids, be at Riverfront Park at 11:45 ish. They'll leave at 12:05 to head on over here. It's only a mile ride from Riverfront Park to here, but you get to experience all the joy and whimsy that is a bike fest. So, and then at the event will start at 12:30. There will be some speakers there, and then there'll be cupcakes and a whole lot of just celebratory feeling afterwards. So, pretty exciting, and that's all I got.
Would you like to do your public?
Sure. I'm happy to. On my notes. So a couple of updates to share. I'll start at the ODOT level. Our interim director, Lisa Sumption, who's been on loan from Parks, Oregon Parks, will be going back to the Parks Department at the end of June. And you may have read in the news, Chris Warner, who's the current chief of staff for Governor Kotek, is going to be our next interim director while the governor's office conducts a national search for our future director. Chris Warner coming is going to be very helpful because he has deep transportation experience. He has been involved in negotiating and passing several transportation packages through the legislature in the past. He was director of Portland Portland Bureau of Transportation for a number of years, and is also advisor to Governor Kulongoski on transportation issues. So he has deep transportation knowledge. And I think will be a very stable, steady leader for ODOT during this transition and heading into legislative session. As our legislative team shared, we're spending a lot of time preparing for that, providing support for the governor's work group process. The hope is that that process will develop consensus recommendations that the legislature will heed and carry forward in a legislative session when it starts early next year. The other change that has happened, which I remember if we've talked about it or not, but officially, but I think you're all aware, Public Transportation Division is now part of a broader division, Policy Data and Analysis Division, PDAD, we call it. PDAD will be going through a name change here shortly, so don't try to remember that acronym for too long. But to reflect the fact that several other offices, areas of work, Transportation Safety Office is now part of PDAD, now Public Transportation. And so it's really the place where the agency does long-term planning and multimodal visioning and then implementation of those plans and visions. So and a lot of analysis and data crunching, which is really helpful. So I think our staff have really welcomed the change. It's great. We're already seeing the benefits of being part of something bigger and having additional resources and support for public transportation work. So all of that's been really good. For public transportation now on this, in our active transportation work, we heard when Amanda Howell introduced herself, she's our interim senior active transportation analyst. And so for those of you that remember Leanne Ferguson's role, is stepping into that role. We're interviewing for that role, and we'll be making a permanent decision about that very soon. Leanne moved from public transportation to become the manager of the Transportation Safety Office. So now all part of the same big family. And then, Bridget, introduced herself. She's, in interim role right now, on rotation, serving as leading the Oregon Community Paths work. And so those are kind of the structural changes and things that are happening. And in terms of our work with the, redirections in both for Oregon Community Paths and Safe Routes to School, we're really taking advantage of this period of time to do some evaluation and rethinking and making sure that we're making improvements to both of those programs. So you heard about that specifically from Bridget today. We're also going to be doing some of the similar thinking about our bike ped work. So I think I just kind of characterize that this year is about how do we improve these programs, improve the delivery, the impacts and results that we want. So I'm sharing more about that with the committee. That's what I've got. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Well, awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you for the great time recovery.
You're welcome.
And I believe if there's nothing else to be said, this meeting can be adjourned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have, where is the gap?
It's actually just a bike tire inflator.
Bye, Gary. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Carrie.
Enjoy.
Thanks so much.
You.